I wasn't blown away, but the last two teams I want to mention briefly. I like what Chicago and San Jose did. They were aggressive in a similar fashion to Detroit. They took in players that were not going to be signed for teams that could compete, but they wanted to get their bag, right? The amount that they wanted to get, like Tyler Bertuzzi. Maybe he just didn't want to be in the lights anymore, but he gets to play with Bedard. The Chicago Blackhawks look like they're going to take a little bit of a step just to stay competitive night in and night out. Nothing crazy. And I like what the Sharks did too. Like I thought to complement Celebrini, they made some nice additions, Will Smith and Celebrini for that matter. And they just added around those rookies. I think they're not going to be as desolate as they were last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Every team that I want to jump to and talk to next, you brought them up. The final two teams. That's just the luck of the puck right there. The final two teams I did want to talk about were the Blackhawks and the Sharks. More so the Blackhawks, I think. I would classify the Blackhawks as winners, off-season winners, up to this point. I don't think the expectation is raised and say, okay, you got to make the playoffs now. But you gotta read in between the lines and take it for what it is. And I think, listen, you have your franchise player in Connor Bedard. You know, you gotta put pieces around him to make him better, and you gotta take baby steps to get there. And the first thing they gotta do is make this team more competitive. That's the first step in getting out of this rebuild phase. And don't get me wrong, they're still a long way from being a playoff team. I'm saying this before the season starts, and they're still in last place. But by getting Tyler Bertuzzi and Teravainen, those are middle six forwards that can potentially give you 20, maybe 25, maybe even 30 goal seasons. 30 if you're lucky. But I think, these contracts, I think they're very team-friendly contracts. I wouldn't call them cheap, but I would call them fair prices. And I think they're relatively low-risk moves. We're not sitting – Bertuzzi's not coming out here, and this isn't a 6 or 7 year deal. They went out there. They made a few trades. They got Alec Martinez, which, yes, he's washed, but I still think he's going to make this defense more competitive. Remember, Chicago's got a lot of young defensemen, and a guy like Alec Martinez, he's won a cup. He's been there in the moment. Maybe he could kind of shed that mentality and kind of – take the same page that the Sharks are taking with Barclay Goodrow over in San Jose. I think the Blackhawks got Mikheyev as well. So they have a lot of other pieces that, is going to make them more competitive, and they're going to be a better team. Now for the Sharks, I think it would be impossible for the Sharks to be worse than they were last year. But I like the pieces that they made. Yeah, they're not going to be a playoff team either, but they made solid veteran additions, and that's the number one thing that a team like. And they made a lot of interesting moves. I mean, Alex Wenberg, Tyler Toffoli, Barclay Goodrow. I mean, these are a lot of role players that they want to take a little bit of Barclay's grit. They want to take a little bit of Tyler Toffoli's skating. They want to mold those kind of aspects into a lot of these younger players' teams, which I like that. Yeah, the Sharks are not going to be any good, but again, it's all about baby steps when you're a team as bad as Chicago's been and as bad as the Sharks have been. You just don't want to get to the Coyotes level where you're just not improving out of the rebuild. You kind of want to take those steps and improve. And listen, I can call the Sharks and the Blackhawks winners. Because they were just that bad of a losers. I mean, you can't get that much worse.
Yeah, and they surrounded those first overall picks. You always become an attractive location. Like I keep mentioning the Rangers when they moved up from the 6th spot to the 2 spot to draft second overall in 2019. All the free agents want to go there. They want to go where they know they have a future, and if the location's attractive to them.